Welcome to Joyful Guitars. My name is Chris. Behind the camera is Matt. As always, and it's another episode of the 3,000-year-old guitar. And today, it's going to be a short one, but a fun one. We're actually going to put our threaded inserts inside of our mortise and tenon, and then get it permanently attached, well, kind of permanently attached to the guitar until we're ready to do our finish work on it. Okay, so let's get started. I recently transitioned, probably about 3 guitars ago, from using these type of threaded inserts, which I think most people are pretty familiar with, right? And they go into the end grain down here. You drill holes, and then these guys would get threaded in as well as epoxied in. And it's always in the back of my mind, absolutely always for the last 15 years, every time I did that, like, man, one of those threaded inserts is just going to come loose and then the neck's going to come separated. It's just a liability. And I knew that there had to be a better way. So I recently switched out to these. What do you think? Barrel nuts? Is that what we can call these?
Barrel D's?
The Barrel D's nuts. Yeah, they sell these usually in the furniture hardware section of the big box stores and things like that. But these things work so much better because what it does is allow me to drill a hole in the side of the tenon and then them go in there and they're fully captured. There's no glue required, and they just work so much better, and the installation process is quicker and easier. So that's what we're going to do today. I went and picked these up this morning, and I'm actually using these are metric. So these are 6 by 1 millimeter pitch. They are 35 millimeters long, if I remember correctly. I could be slightly off, but I know that they're M6s. I do know that. We interrupt this programming to tell you guys a little bit about some of the products that we sell. One of them being this awesome paint handle. For those of you that are maybe respraying a guitar or following along with one of our builds, and you're looking, how can I hold my guitar while I spray it? We have the solution. Check these guys out. We have them in a link down below, as well as our fret caddies that we've started selling. And these are awesome for refrets or just general guitar maintenance. You put your loose frets inside of here, your bridge pins here, and any sort of metallic hardware that you have inside of there, just to help keep your workbench organized. So check those out. We do have links down below, and we'll ship them today. Okay, so what I like to do to get all this working is to drill the body of the guitar first. And then what I'll be able to do is transfer the holes that I drill inside the mortise and get them to line up with the tenon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this guitar on my vacuum clamp that I have sitting right here. Remember, and I mentioned this in a previous video, that if you don't have a vacuum clamp to hold your guitar body, you're going to need to come up with some sort of way, either with a large vise like this, or you can actually use like clamps and stick it onto the side of your workbench somehow. Just be very careful with it. You do need to make sure that you have this guitar held in place really nicely. What I need to do now is find the center of my mortise over here. So I don't know, is Matt going to be able to just lean over the whole time?
I might actually have to hop up on top of the workbench. Let it never be said that I'm not committed to getting the perfect shot every time.
Yeah. So now that we've got our guitar held nice and tightly, what I need to do is find the center of my mortise. The nice thing for me is that when I go to route this out, my router bit actually leaves a line right down the center of it. But if you don't have a line right down the center of it that's visible, you can use some calipers, measure it, split the difference, and mark it. But I'll actually take my pencil here and just darken up the line that I'm going to use. There's my center line. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a drill bit that's about, I don't know, 1 or 2 steps larger than the shaft on your bolt. And I'm going to just drill this bad boy. And I'm going to make sure that my guitar is sitting nice and plumb this direction so that I can trust that when I get my drill and I have it plumb, that it's all lined up really nicely. So I like to go about, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch from the end. The nice thing is that you don't have to measure this. You're just going to transfer it over to the neck anyway. So I'm going to go about 3/4 inch from the end and drill this. And then I'm going to come down probably about, I don't know, 1.25 inches from there. And we're going to do our second bolt.
Nice technique on the drilling.
Yeah, looks really nice, right? Okay,
and he sticks the landing.
That's right. I like to have just a little bit of wiggle room inside my bolt so that I can have a little bit of play on that neck. But the next thing that I need to do is transfer my truss rod, because obviously the way that I do it, the truss rod, I adjust through the sound hole. So I need to actually punch a hole through this section of my neck block so that I can access it through the transverse brace that we did way back in like episode 5 of this series. So what I'm gonna have to do at this point is make a decision, and it always is. It's a two-way street for me. One option is I can actually very, very carefully drill out this hole and then have it come all the way through. Or I can take it from the front here and just route a channel out. Let me grab a neck block just so that I can remind you guys of exactly what's going on here in the mechanics. Okay, so this is what one of those neck blocks looks like, if you guys remember from way back then. And it's inside the guitar like this. So what I need to do is either route this spot out right here so that it would be like that. Correct? Are we seeing, understanding?
Yeah.
Right, so that we can take our truss rod wrench and come in through this way. Or, because it's sitting inside here, as I can drill that. And the problem with drilling is that you have to make sure that your drill bit is completely plumb as you drill through this so that it punches out right here and doesn't blow out the backside of our neck block. So what I've preferred to do is to use a router. It's just a lot easier and less likely to cause some major catastrophic damage. So what I'm going to do is flip this vacuum clamp so that we can do that with our router bit real quick. And I guess Matt's going to have to get off the workbench.
It's kind of comfy up here.
Okay, I've got this guy flipped on its side, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a wait for it, a 1/4 inch ball end router bit inside my router here, and I'm gonna route a little channel out like we just talked about. But before I do that, I'm gonna use my busted acrylic template, and I'm gonna set it on my guitar so that I can locate roughly where my transverse brace is, just so, because I don't want to go into the transverse brace. So we don't want to go any further past that point. We're gonna take it, make her look real pretty, real nice. I know that's kind of maybe hard to see. And then I'm going to take another pencil and I'm just going to mark my center line. Right, yeah. And that's going to be roughly the channel that I route out. Okay, so this next part is going to make people clutch pearls, because I do this freehand, folks. I always have done this freehand. Nothing's gone wrong yet. It's been over 100 guitars for me. If you wanted to, you could clamp a straight edge onto here and have it right on against it, but I just haven't ever had any issues. Underneath, this is underneath where the fingerboard extension goes, and I do it by hand. I would recommend that if you're new to woodworking that you don't try to do it freehand. I will say that. This is kind of a expert level. All right, so before I cut this, what I'd like to mention to folks, if you're doing your truss rod the same way that I do, is that I like to kind of get it right here, and then I just kind of bang it against it real quick so that I can get a mark and know exactly where my truss rod is. And I've done that. I've got this set to a depth that's going to allow that truss rod to have clearance. So at this point, it's just time to let her rip, tater, chip. I got a chunk of sawdust in my mouth.
Yeah.
So, you saw how easy that was. That came out pretty good. Okay, so we've got our channel made with the router, but it's got a little bit of waves to it here and there just because I did it by hand. So what I'm going to do is take one of these small razor files, these Stumac ones, and just clean up these edges real quick, just to get it nice and pretty looking. Not that it matters because it's underneath the fingerboard, but it does matter, right? Mm-hmm. And now we have clearance for our truss rod. And I should be able to now slide this on, bada bing, nice and good. So it looks really nice at this point. All right, so now that we've got this neck able to sit inside of here, what I need to do is transfer these marks where these holes were onto the tenon of the guitar. Something Matt mentioned just a second ago was that in that last shot, you could see that the where I routed my truss rod channel was slightly off-centered. And I did notice that after we got done. I couldn't see it because Matt was standing in the spot where you could actually see it. But what's important is that it's where the truss rod is. So for this particular guitar, when I did that bang, bang, bang on it, that's exactly where that truss rod lined up. And it fits nicely. Little things like that, sometimes if it's not absolutely dead perfect, this isn't something that you see from the other side anyway, so it's not a big deal. As long as it lines up with the hole that I put in my transverse brace, which it does, and it lines up so that the neck fits on it. That's all that really, really matters. But I digress. What we can do now is take the very drill bit that we drilled these holes out with right here, and we're going to come from the inside, make sure we get our neck firmly pressed into the place that we want it. I'm going to come from the inside, and I'm going to take it, and I'm actually going to spin it in the backwards direction. And I'm doing that now on the back hole, and then I'm going to try it and do the same thing on this front one here. It's too easy.
Yeah.
And you will see where the magic happens. There we go. Now we're good. The nice thing about doing it with the exact same drill bit that you just drilled it with, there's zero play in it at all. So you know that you're marking it dead where it needs to go. Okay. Can we see them? Right? We got our dots. So that's exactly where we want our threaded inserts to go. So now we're going to move over to this vise. And I'll show you how we transfer these lines over to the side so that we can put what I'm calling barrel nuts into the guitar neck. This is a good way for me to clamp it. I know that it's not going to move around too much. Now, what we need to do, like I said, we need to make sure that we put our barrel nut exactly in line with where those holes are going to go. So what I have decided to do is we're going to take just a nice square that we have here, and we're going to transfer some of these lines. And I'm just transferring those little dots that we have across the top. This one here. Then we're going to come and we're going to transfer those lines onto the side of the guitar. I'll do them on this side. It's always so hard for me to do this so that you guys can see and I can see. There it is. Okay, so we need to drill some holes, and I've already got my drill bit set up. I like to go, so I think this was like, yeah, this is like 9.8 millimeters in diameter, and I'm drilling it out with like a 9.6 millimeter drill bit. So that way these things will fit in there and have a little bit of friction to them so that they're not just falling out. That's how I like to do it. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna move over to the drill press to do this. You could, if you don't have a drill press, you could do it, you know, chuck this bad boy up, and then you would need to drill these this way. There's a lot that can go wrong that way, I feel like. So if you have a drill press or you know somebody with a drill press, just borrow it for this one job. You got to get this part right. So let's move over to the drill press. We'll push those holes through. I have a few little considerations that I want to talk about, and then we'll be have those in. Okay, over at the drill press, like I said, a couple things that we need to consider on this. First of all, I don't want to just drill this thing right out of the gate without changing the angle of my bed. Matt was asking me why I'm doing this. Well, you got to remember our neck's got a taper to it, right? So what I'm going to use is the end of my fretboard and make sure that I get it lined up so that it's perfectly plumb with the drill bit. And once that point is done, I know that it's actually perpendicular to my tenon. So I went ahead and made that adjustment off camera. Looks super cool to me. And then I'm going to lower my bed, and then we will be able to get our holes drilled. But before I do that, let's talk about the where, right? Where are we gonna drill these holes in? So just so that Matt can see a little bit better, I could drill them smack in the middle, but that's not really what I want to do. I want to get those inserts as far up the tenon as I can, because I want to have as much solid maple wood right here so that I have more strength to the wood, right? That makes sense, I feel like. Mm-hmm. So what I like to do when I do these is get that drill bit as close as I can to the sides of the neck heel. Obviously you don't want that drill bit hitting up against it. If you nick it at all, you're gonna have a gap right there, so you don't wanna do that. But I get it as close as I can. I would say probably a millimeter away from it, and then we're just gonna drill through it at that point, right? Yeah, it's looking good. And we're just gonna get it right there on our pencil line. Nice light pressure. We don't want to blow out the backside, so yeah, nice light pressure on it. Getting my drill bit as close as I can to the cheek. Bada bing! It's looking really nice. So now we'll go over to the vise and we can do our other two holes that are going to come in through this side. Okay, so now we still have our marks where we need to drill our holes in the vertical position. And I'm going to use that same drill bit that I used to drill out the body, so it's the exact same size. And we're just going to come here and just drill them nice and plumb. Making sure I'm plumb. This is also why it's nice to use a slightly oversized drill bit, because it does give you a little bit of room in case you're not drilling it absolutely perfectly plumb. Sweet! Okay, so that looks super good. The next thing we can do at this point is we're just going to put our threaded inserts exactly where we want them to go. So these should just slide in nice and good now. Oh, it's so satisfying. Get a little hammer, actually. Do we have a hammer? Get the world's largest hammer here.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna tap this in. It's a little bit proud on the one side. I'm actually probably gonna have to sand it down, I think. And then we'll press this guy in. Make sure that when you slide these in that you're getting your threads in the right direction. Otherwise you're kind of not gonna be able to do it. But I think you can see now this method is so much better than the other way, because instead of the screw trying to like rip the threads out, at this point it's locked in place. It's essentially trying to pull down on it like I'm trying to pull down on this screwdriver. And we got ourselves a really nice fit here. And the other cool thing about them is, once again, there's just a little bit of play to it. So I can actually have some slight differences in the angle of our bolt, and it works really nicely. It looks like, let's see if Matt can show that at all. So you can see right here, it's sticking out a little bit on this side. So I'm gonna push these back out, put them on the edge sander real quick, and just make them slightly narrower, and then we'll be able to bolt this onto the body. Okay, threaded inserts in. Now they're nice and flush along the edges here. Just needed just a kiss of sanding on there. So now for the grand reveal, I should be able to come from the back side here, put our put our bolts in, and everything should look good. Let's see. A little bit of that. A little bit of this. Just a note too, if you're doing a bolt-on mortise and tenon like I'm doing here, you might wonder like how long should I be putting the bolts. What I'd say is that you want at least probably a ½ inch worth of threads on there. You know, that's kind of what I would say is safe. You don't want just a couple of threads. That's that wouldn't be good at all. You love to see it. Let's see what we got here. So now our neck is obviously fully bolted on. Everything's looking really good. Can Matt get down inside there and see? You could see our one bolt probably, maybe.
Yeah. And
it's looking super good, right? Everything looks really nice. The other thing that I want to check real quick is to make sure that the neck hasn't moved at all, which it shouldn't have. Everything should look really nice from when we did our neck set a few episodes ago. Obviously, this is just going to lock everything in place. Yeah, man. Looks super good to me. Lines up perfectly with the center. Yeah, man. That is how you do your threaded inserts in a standard bolt-on mortise and tenon neck. And I hope you guys picked up some useful tidbits in that one. And the next episode, what we're going to do is the very last piece of major construction on this guitar, which is just gluing on the heel cap and getting that all fitted. And we're just about done with this guitar before it's inlay time. So we'll see you guys in the next one, and make sure you guys do like and subscribe. Thanks a lot, guys.